In today's Quickcast, taken from the Lawrence First and Goal Clinic, Boston College defensive coordinator Tem Lukabu shares the things that go into building their culture, especially as it relates to their defensive goals and how they track those. This short podcast is going to give you some great information and ideas of things you can do within your program. The link to the entire talk, which is discounted right now on CoachTube, will be in the show notes. Here's Coach Tem Lukabu.
We always talk about, in our program, we always talk about standards. You got to have standards, right? Standards of what you're willing to live up to versus what you're okay with dipping down to. All right, as coaches, as leaders, what are you willing to live up to, right? What's your standards? Every program has their own definition of this. And this has to be established quickly. This has to be established before you even take the field that first day, right? If you try to establish your standards during your first game, it's too late. It's too late. Now is the time to do all these things. If you're in the off season, now is the time to establish your standards. All right. Somebody asked me what our specific defensive goals were. All right. Coming into a situation where before we got here, we struggled a lot. And so coming up with these goals I was very intentional about it as far as we need to be realistic with where we are right now versus where we want to be. All right. Ask yourself these questions. Where are we today? What's our personnel? What can our scheme allow us to do? Who are our opponents? Right? Who do we play? So are our goals realistic or not? Yeah, we all want to give up 0 points per game. All right. So you got to factor all those things in when you make your goals. Always try to compare yourself to the best and what they're doing based off of, once again, off of many factors. In my opinion, I think you try to do your goals based off of what the teams who you're going to play are. What do they look like? The teams in your division, the teams in your conference, right? Do you want to be in the top half of your conference? Or are you past that? Is your personnel so good that you're not even worried about your division or your conference? And is it more on a national scale? You know, those are the questions you ask yourself right there. Somebody asked a pretty good question. I've had the honor. I've been blessed with the opportunity to be in the National Football League and be at some really good college programs. What different challenges do you see in setting the culture in the NFL versus college? I can tell you right now, one of the big differences is, you know, in college you can count on the fact that you're going to have guys for at least 3 years, 4 years, depending on what type of program you're at. In the National Football League, the front end of your roster is tied down by the contracts that they have, and you know, as long as they're playing well, they're going to be there for a while. You know, so maybe the top 22 of your guys on your roster are going to be there for a while. But other than that, there's a good chance, depending on what franchise you're at, that it's going to be a revolving door based off of injury, performance. Depending on the franchise that you're at in an NFL season, it's just real that you could have a new player every 4 weeks, and you got to get them ready to play. So you could establish your culture in the offseason in the National Football League, but all of a sudden during the year, because of injury or transactions, those guys might not know what your culture is, and they got to learn it in a couple days worth. Whereas in college, the changes aren't happening as much or as frequent. But I think you bring up a really good question because nowadays with this transfer portal thing, that's changed things. So that's why, you know, by everybody's program, I think you got to be great at establishing your culture, a culture that can handle taking on new people that haven't been there for 3-4 years in your culture. You know, do you have enough leadership that can bring a guy along and bring them up to speed on what your expectations are? You know, that's a good question with with the different challenges there. In pro ball, there's so many different personalities. I mean, shoot, there's different personalities at both places, but it all depends on the franchise or the program that you're at. That's a really good question. I would say in my experience, the National Football League is more of a fluid situation. You have to be way more adaptable. But once again, in my opinion, in the places that do well, have a concrete culture, and the leadership doesn't change as much. Somebody asked me, what does FTT is part of our culture. It's part of our overall team culture here. Coach Half established FTT. FTT is for the team. It's for the team. Everything you do is for the team, right? No selfishness. We do everything for the team. Whatever decisions we make, it's for the best. It's to put the program in the best situation. Our guys really bought into that. It was a huge part of our success. It was a huge part of just making a real concrete foundation in the first year. Our core beliefs in our culture on defense here, we take the field with an attitude. It's a pet peeve of mine, especially on P&10. You know, we believe in coming off the sideline, and we want to send a message to the other sideline that we're ready to go. And if we saunter out there and we have bad body language, to me, I think you send a message to the other side that we're not ready to go, and, you know, we're not up to the task. Here, we believe in taking the field with an attitude by sprinting onto the field, great body language, ready to go. We communicate each and every down. All right. Number 3 is huge. This is a combination of a lot of things I've heard at a lot of places that I've been, and it's a great advantage for us. I think it's one of our bottom lines. It's one of our bottom lines. Regardless of scheme, whatever the call was, it doesn't matter. The situation, our goal is to get the ball. Take the ball, get it in our hands, or get it on the ground. Meaning, if the ball carrier has it, get him on the ground. Part 4 there is part of our FTT. We celebrate together, right? We want to have a mindset that we're going to have success. When we do have success, we celebrate together. No individual dancing and this and that. No, we do everything together. Celebrate together, all right? And at the end of the day, all right, we remind our guys, all right, this play is the most important play. One play at a time. I believe in doing things one play at a time. All right, do things on a micro level. Helps us just keep guys grounded and be focused on individual plays. We evaluate what we're, are we getting what we're preaching and practicing? All right, how do you do that? Well, we keep track of it through stats, because another thing that young men players nowadays that they pay attention to are analytics and stats. Right. So we let our guys know, hey, rip attempts. Are you ripping at the ball during practice? Because if you're not doing it during practice, you're not going to get it during the game. You're not. You have to be intentional. If our guys are being intentional, it'll show up in the stats. Right. Are you expecting sacks in a game and your guys are not, getting sacks in practice? All right. Are you practicing it? Right. All these evaluation things, they got to start in practice. They have to.
I hope you enjoyed today's Quickcast with Boston College defensive coordinator Tem Lukabu. We have more coming for you as we ramp up towards the season, including our training camp series, and then flipping into our in-season series as well. Follow all we're doing at coachandcoordinator.com, and follow me on Twitter at Coach K. Grabowski.